Welcome to our MarquetteHoops.com basketball show. My name is John Dodds. Tom Pippins is on assignment, but he will return soon. The theme of our show is we live in the past so you don't have to. But today we're going to live in the present. We're going to look at back at one of Marquette's most successful and satisfying seasons in history, last season 2022 and 2023. Our guest is Ben Steele, beat reporter for the Milwaukee Journal and JS Online. He's covered the Marquette basketball team for the last few years. And we'll look at year two of the Shaka Smart rebuild. And it lost over 40% of its scoring when Justin Lewis and Daryl Marcel both went pro. They were picked to finish ninth in the Big East. And the team had one of the most memorable and satisfying seasons. And we'll go over that season with Ben Steele. Thanks to our sponsor, Moonlight Graham, our great partner providing modern dental benefits. If you want to see an archive of our shows, go to our website, MarquetteHoops.com, and if you could send a note or a link to other Marquette fans to tell them about our show, we'd appreciate it. And now here's Ben Steele. Just wanted to get your thoughts first on Cam Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a guy that's probably going to challenge for Big East scoring title next season. If he takes another leap from, he went from 7 points a game his first season to 15 last season, and showed great efficiency, and I really expect that to continue. He's continuing to get stronger, really good finishing around the basket. That's only going to get better as he gets stronger. So he might be able to push up to that 18 point, maybe even pushing 20 points per game next season.
Next player would be Stevie Mitchell. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, Stevie is a guy who very unheralded most of the season as part of that five-man starting lineup that we talked about that was so good this season. Stevie's kind of the overlooked guy just because he's not the points per game guy. His numbers don't scream off the top of the page, but I think at the end of the year, I think people had a real appreciation for just what Stevie brings, just as far as energy-wise, enthusiasm-wise. I always say that Stevie's probably the archetypal Shaka Smart player in that, he gets up into you, he guards you, he's enthusiastic, he's a great teammate, he's smiling all the time. All those things that Shaka values, Stevie Mitchell kind of embodies that.
Tyler Kolek, Big East Player of the Year, Big East Tournament Player of the Year, and amazing when I read his bio from the portal from George Mason. I thought we were getting a catch-and-shoot two-guard.
Right. And I think that's what most people expected.
Yeah. He's led the Big East in assists the last 2 years.
Physically a lot stronger this year. And we could just see it when he showed up. I think I remember seeing him at that the barbecue in the summertime. I was like, dang, man, you got pretty big in the summer, and it played out on the court this season. Just finished around the basket. It's funny to think that this time of year, probably when we were doing this show last season, that we were talking about he's really got to improve his finishing around the basket, and he's really got to step up his shooting next season. And that's what happened. That's all of a sudden you got the Big East Player of the Year when he's knocking down 38% of his threes or whatever. It ended up jumping up from the 28 that he had last season where he really struggled. So I expect Tyler's going to be on probably most people's first team All-American preseason ballots next season. He's going to be, I think for him, I know he was really disappointed at the end of the season how he fared, not just against Michigan State, but against Vermont too. He kind of struggled after he got hurt. I know he's going to use that as motivation, just like last season when everyone was saying that he couldn't shoot or he needs to be much better offensively. He took that personally, and you saw what happened. So I fully expect a fully motivated Tyler Kolek next season, heading into next season.
Let's go to Omax Prosper. You always listen to the coaches and hear what coaches have to say about certain players. Hank Raymond's saw the triplets when they came in 2005, 2006. And he said Wesley Matthews, whoa, this is a guy that's really going to be good. I like Dominic and Jarrell, but Wesley is my guy. And last year, Jay Wright was always talking up Omax. He said that Prosper, he's a matchup nightmare. He's 6'9". He can guard any position. He can lead you on the press in a diamond press or a 2-2-1 press. Very difficult guy. So he took the next step this year.
Really, like we talked about, his defense against Hawkins and the defense against Colby Jones of Xavier, another future NBA player, in the Big East Tournament Championship game. Yeah, he's another guy that I don't think got quite like Stevie. Didn't quite get the recognition that he deserved. He wasn't. Marquette players talked about this at the end of the season, that Omax didn't get on any All Big East teams or All Big East honorable mention or All Big East tournament team. They were kind of upset at that because they know how important that Omax is. Just being that versatile guy that can guard, 1 through 5 really at the college level, and really spearheads kind of the full court pressure at the top with his activity and his length. Got a lot better offensively. Still falls down a lot. I know people make fun of Omax a lot. He always seems like 95% of his layup attempts, he always seems to end up on the deck for some reason. They really worked on that a lot with his balance, but still needs to improve on that a little bit just to be able to finish strong in the basket and not, end up on the floor and have the other team going the other way with 5-on-4 action if he misses. So he's got probably, I tell people that he's probably got the most NBA potential on this team. We'll see if he wants to test the draft waters this season just to see, where NBA teams think he is. But being a 6'8", 6'9" guy with that length and that athleticism, that 3-and-D kind of model is what NBA teams are looking for this season. And Omax has that. Still can polish his skills a little bit, but future's bright for him for sure.
The next player I want to talk about is Oso Egadaro. And this year when I talked to opponent coaches, they always looked at Oso as being the unicorn, which made Marquette very unique. The fact that they could shut down Kolek, but at a moment's notice, Kolek could hand it off to Oso, and he could work as a two-guard, and he could run the offense, and you had to guard him. And they had to make a decision whether to take their big and to go up to Oso, because he was so good at the reverse skip pass for the weak side 3. So Oso was really an interesting player for Marquette last year.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Marquette's offense that was number 1 in efficiency for most of the season, or top 5 most of the season, number 1 for at least a couple months on KenPom.com. And Oso was a big reason for that, just because, like you mentioned, it makes defenses do something that they're not used to, guarding a big out there or having to account for his passing ability. I remember, that was another thing Shaka talked about all summer last year, was he had the same phrase that he used all the time, that Oso Egadaro was going to handle the ball more than any 6'10" guy in the country. And, at the time I was thinking, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you got a really good point guard in Tyler Kolek. Well, why don't you want the ball in his hands a lot? But then I remember the first practice that they had at Fiserv Forum, it was kind of a preview of what the season was going to be. Oso caught the ball at the elbow, and, I don't remember who was guarding Chase Ross, but Chase Ross was in the corner, and his defender kind of took a peek at Oso having the ball, and Chase cut back door, and Oso just dropped like a perfect no-look bounce pass right in the pocket. Chase Ross had a dunk at the rim. And I was like, okay, now I understand what the coaches were talking about there. And it played out all season, like whether it was guys like Stevie Mitchell cutting off, giving Oso the ball and then cutting around him for easy layups, or like you mentioned, the skip passes, or just that two-man game with Oso and Tyler was just killer when you have two guys that can pass that way, and Tyler shooting much better. So defense, you're forced to pick a poison with whatever you're set your defense up to be, and Marquette can exploit any defensive coverage that they have just with those two passers.
Next player is David Chaplin. I remember talking to his dad a year ago, and I went up to him and I said, Mr. Pierce, I really enjoy watching your son Ricky play on the court. And this past year, I went up.
The reference?
Yeah, that's right, Ricky Pierce. But this year, I went up to him and I said, Mr. Aguirre, I really enjoy watching your son Mark play, because he totally improved his release, his range, and last year, at the end of the year, he couldn't play a lick of defense, and this year he actually did some pretty impressive things on defense.
Right, yeah. We should mention that he was the Big East Sixth Man of the Year. I don't know if anyone saw that coming before the season. And, yeah, a lot of improvement for him, defensively especially. That's what jumps off the screen or jumps off in person when you're watching him. Just, he's bought in. He still has lapses every now and then. He's still a young player. He's still learning on that end. But the want to has improved a lot, and his body's improved a lot over the last couple of years. And he's a guy, man, when his three-point shooter, when he's hot, that changes the whole complexion of the offensive game. This Marquette team, it wasn't a really good three-point shooting team by the numbers this year. It was fairly average, just right about the D1 average of three-point shooting percentage. But there were games when, like against DePaul, when Chaplin was making 8 threes, and that just opened the offense. And good luck stopping that Marquette passing attack when you got to space out to the three-point line and guard Chaplin way out, 25 feet away from the basket, and opens up all those lanes. So he's a guy that, if he can keep making that trajectory like that, he's going to be a really good player. Shaka Smart would mention this when he was hyping Dave Joplin up as a freshman, that one day Joplin's going to lead the Big East in scoring, and you could see the tools there. It was all come together next season, and if he takes that next step, it wouldn't be shocking to see him, up there in the points per game leaders in the Big East.
Next person I want to go to is Chase Ross. When I talked to the coaches early last year, they said that they knew he was efficient at the rim finishing, but they didn't know how strong, it even surpassed their expectations, how he could finish. It's very Jimmy Butler-esque in terms of his elevation and finish at the rim. Yeah.
Really impressive body for a freshman. So that's only going to get stronger as he continues to work in the weight room. What I struck most with him was he was completely fearless about attacking off the rim. Like that dunk that he had at Seton Hall, one of the highlight plays of the season. He wasn't afraid. He just went full sprint, didn't even think about, and Seton Hall had some really big, really good shot blockers, like Ndefu, I think, was the guy he ended up finishing on, and Tyrese Samuel, and Chase Ross wasn't afraid to attack the basket. He's really a guy that's probably going to make a big leap next season once he gets the more consistent shooting, becomes more confident offensively, and the different types of attacks that he can do, not just as a dunker, but vary up his attack a little bit. And defensively, he has all the physical tools to be that Jimmy Butler defensive stopper type of guy. He's not as big as Jimmy, obviously. He's a couple inches shorter, but he has that tenacity that you need as to be that bulldog defensive stopper. I think that's in there with Chase Ross. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops next season if he gets a little more playing time next season.
Next player is Sean Jones, who, thank goodness, came back. It seemed like the team was creaking a little bit when he left for those 3 games right around the National Marquette Day, right around the Butler beginning of February. And Kolek was playing too many minutes and starting to wear down, but Sean Jones came back and gutted it out before the postseason surgery. But he had a nice season for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that he's interesting that he changed the complexion of a lot of games. Like the first time they played UConn, at Fiserv, I think Sean kind of changed the tenor of the game a little bit just with his energy defensively. And he's one of those guys, his crowd favorite, obviously. Short crowds love this short 5'10" guys, but also they love scrappy, guys that get in your face and guard you like Sean Jones does. So he's that kind of change of pace guard. He's like a scamp back in football or something. He could just a gadget play type of guy you could throw out there. It'll be interesting to see how he evolved. He struggled, obviously being a shorter guy, finishing at the rim against Big East competition. A lot of that probably had to do with the wrist at the end of the season, not being able to finish around the basket. So it's going to be a learning process for him, just learning what he can do and what he can't do with his size. But, as the coaches will tell you can't measure Sean Jones's heart, and he's been overcoming his height his whole career. I expect him to get a lot better on all those issues that he had this season, finishing against length and all that. I expect him to get a lot better next season.
The last player is Ben Gold, and he has my vote for prediction of the Big East most improved player for next year. I see Zach Fremantle from Xavier, who became an incredibly a different player, improved in every way from his freshman year to his sophomore year. Gold is kind of a stretch four. He can remind you of Novak from outside, shooting at 6'11", but he can also put the ball on the floor and take it to the hoop. He can pass. He can run in transition. Very athletic. This is my guy to watch for over the summer.
Yeah, the play that I think about with Ben Gold the most is at UConn. Donovan Clingan, the 7'2" guy for super freshman for the Huskies. Ben Gold pulled him away from the basket, pump faked, couple dribbles into the lane, finished right around the basket. That was a really impressive play. That showed the potential that Ben Gold has. Like all freshmen, he could get a little stronger. I'm sure it was hard for him, not just physically wise this season, but just coming over from Australia, where he played at the NBA Global Academies from New Zealand. Long way from home. That's always an adjustment for those guys the first season that they're over in the States playing in college. So I expect him to be a lot more comfortable on the court and off the court next season. That could bode well for growth on the court as far as both his role and his production.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the NCAA tournament down in Columbus. Marquette beat Vermont, the first win since they beat Miami back in 2013 in Washington, D.C., and then they played Michigan State. Just your thoughts on both of those games.
Yeah, I mean, they took the biggest step that was ending that decade-long NCAA tournament victory drought. Just needed to get that monkey off their back. I'm sure there's a disappointment that they didn't reach the Sweet 16, reach the second weekend. That stings a little bit for how good this team was during the regular season. But just getting that first one was just huge. Just to relieve the anxieties of the fan base and also, give the team confidence going into next season where, last year they got blown out in the first round by North Carolina. Getting that first victory, getting the high seed and getting an easy victory in the first round, that was key. Just ran into a tough matchup in the second round. That Michigan State, Tom Izzo coached team on a quick turnaround. Man, there was no space around the basket. That Michigan State team just really locked off the paint area. I didn't think going into the game that was a typical Michigan State team, but they proved otherwise during the game. It was just tough, physical around the basket. Didn't allow anything easy, all those easy shots at the rim that Marquette was getting all season. I think Marquette only ended up with 9 2-point field goals in that game. That was a season low for Marquette. So nothing easy, and it was a slog in that game, and just a bad matchup for Marquette. And that's the nature of the beast. You have one subpar game, a lot of turnovers by Tyler especially. You have one subpar game, and that ends your season in a single elimination tournament. It's a tough way to go out, and I know that the team wanted more. Everyone wanted more, all the fans and coaches, and everyone wanted more, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, you have to be lucky when you get there. I remember back in '76, I think it was Lloyd Walton pulled a hamstring or pulled a quad muscle before the Indiana game and had it wrapped up and wasn't at 100%. Kolek not being at 100% really, really impacted him. It looked like Michigan State was pushing him to his right, and he was having trouble there. I know there was one, he was trying to make about a 50-foot chest pass to Omax, who was streaking down, and the pass was short, and Joey Hauser intercepted it. And I thought it looked like he just didn't have the strength in his thumb to get it there.
Yeah. Like I said before, it's hard to say how much, I think he was trying to force the issue a little bit, and it's hard to say whether he was frustrated because of the thumb and he wasn't able to do the things that he usually does, and that kind of fed into the turnover issue a little bit, or but it did seem like he was forcing a lot of things that he normally didn't. He didn't want to blame the thumb afterwards. I have to take him at his word, but only he can say for sure whether the thumb affected it. So who knows? It's one of those mysteries that'll linger that fans can debate about.
So just to kind of sum up, year 3 of the Shaka rebuild, it looks like they have 3 seniors with Prosper, Kolek, and Oso, 3 juniors, Cam Jones, Stevie, and Chaplin, 3 sophomores, Sean Jones, Chase Ross, Ben Gold. As of now, there still could be, who knows what's happening in the portal. And then 3 incoming freshmen, Lowry, Norman, and Amadou. So you have 12 players all staggered in different classes, which is so different than even last year when they had to get a Zach Reitzel just to have a senior.
Right, yeah. I mean, this seems like everything's going according to plan, according to the rebuilding plan. And it's also, I mean, this is win now mode next season. This is going to be the best chance at it, at a deep run in the NCAA tournament. But also, I mean, you can see that they're set up for success in the years afterwards. So it'll be it's going to be a really interesting season on a lot of levels. This team's not going to be picked to finish in 9th in the Big East next season. I can pretty much guarantee that. So how this team deals with the expectations, how they deal with, being the hunted instead of the hunter, as that cliche goes. That's a whole different mentality. I mean, this team kind of thrived on being the chip on the shoulder last season. It'll be interesting to see how they switch up that mentality, how they, deal with those pressures externally and internally. I'm sure internally they feel like next season they're going to be really good as well. So how they deal with that, it's going to be fascinating just to see the psychological aspect of that.
Well, you mentioned how they're not going to be any secret next year. Well, John Rothstein from CBS has Marquette preseason number 4. Gary Parrish has Marquette preseason 3. Andy Katz has Marquette number 2 for next year. And Jeff Goodman has them preseason number 1. So
yeah.
This is the highest rating since the 1976 when Butch Lee came off the Olympic game in Montreal, where he scored 35 points for Puerto Rico against Marquette, or against the USA, and Marquette lost to number 1 Indiana. They were rated preseason number 1 back in '76, and Jeff Goodman has them preseason number 1. It's going to be interesting to see if they can rely on internal improvement over the summer, or if they need to get a Zach Reitzel like they did last year, somebody big, just to give them a different look in certain rotations and matchups like UConn or Michigan State.
Yeah, and also just chemistry-wise, everything was just, it couldn't have been any better chemistry-wise last season. I remember a couple of coaches would tell me, like, man, this is so odd. We don't have to worry about any egos. We don't have to worry about any fights. We're just coaching basketball. We don't have to worry about anything in the locker room, any of that stuff. And, that stuff's fragile, man. That chemistry stuff can change with any kind of subtle tweak. So if you're going to bring in a guy, it's got to be the right guy for the situation. You don't want to disrupt anything, disrupt the good vibes that were there last season. That's that's why coaches get paid a lot of money. They have to make those kind of decisions. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch all that stuff. There's so many different levels of next season that are going to be just really fascinating to watch.
Well, and a friend of Shaka down in Columbus told me that at Texas, he was encouraged, quotes, encouraged to go for 5-star players. Those are one and done type players now. Now he wants to build a program his own way where he can fit players in and build them longer term. And I thought, the model for that might be Jay Wright at Nova. He always seemed to have a fifth-year senior that he was plugging in, or somebody that sat out just to learn everything. So it'll be interesting to see how that works for him.
Yeah. There was always a passing of the torch with the Villanova. You went from Brunson to Gillespie, Archidiacono in between them. That there was always a clear path ahead. And I think with this Marquette team, you could see they're really going to be really good next season, but there's also a path ahead for the years after that, which college basketball, I say this all the time, it's really dangerous to look even like this show that we're doing, man. This could be outdated, like I said before. You never want to look a week ahead, much less, 2 or 3 seasons down the line. So, just focus on next season. That's what I tell people.
Well, I used to be very nervous when DJ Carton and Dawson Garcia left. And then I was very nervous when Justin Lewis left. And now I've stopped being nervous. Let the coaches do whatever they want. It seems they know what they're doing. So good luck to them, and it's going to be fascinating to watch.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Can't wait to do the preseason show with you next season.
Oh, we'll probably do that next week. Ben, thanks a lot for going above and beyond today. We'll use clips all summer on this. And again, Marquette fans appreciate your articles and your features and your tweets and your notes. It was a fun season to watch, but it was a fun season to read about. So thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, and I'm ready to go again. Let's go.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks to Ben Steele for going above and beyond. We'll have clips of Ben Steele from our long interview all the way through the spring and maybe even into the summer. If you want to see an archive of our show, please go out to our website, marquettehoops.com. Look in the left-hand margin, and you'll see our link, and you can watch those. We're part of the CBS Digital Network. Also, if you'd like to be on our newsletter, please sign up for that by dropping your email in the newsletter widget. Thanks to our sponsor, Moonlight Graham, a partner providing great modern dental benefits. We couldn't do it without Craig Caston and Moonlight Graham. Until next week, thanks for watching.